My fiancé and I decide to go out to dinner and on a little double date with my parents. We live in the upstairs apartment of their home, so we usually all carpool to save gas when we go do stuff as a group. We're all together, and my mom decides she wants to go check out this local cemetery. I'd rather not name it, because it would give away my locale, but it's in the West Georgia area, right by the Alabama state line. She had heard of it from co-workers she trusted, who told their family stories about how creepy this place was. I got a knot in my stomach as soon as she mentioned it. I just knew in my guts that we did not need to go there, but I didn't want to be the wet rag, so I just ignored that little voice of caution and said, "Sure, let's do it." My fiancé was slightly more skeptical of paranormal things at the time than he is now, and my dad is a pretty big skeptic who doesn't believe in ghost activity much. No shadow people or any of that. Just basic religious angels, demons, as he is a Christian. My mom likes things for the creep factor, but at the time didn't really buy into stuff like that on a realistic level. We Google the address, punch it into the GPS, and go. The GPS tells us it'll take us about 20 minutes to get there, but it ends up taking an hour. For some reason, the time on the GPS just keeps steadily going up the closer we get. It was all country back roads, and some of them felt like the exact same as the road before and so on. Can't explain it in words really, but it felt like we were repeating roads when the road names were different and the GPS showed us in different parts of the map. We finally reach the address and there's nothing. It's an empty road intersection. The moment we hit the destination flag on the GPS goes black for a moment, and then when the screen comes back on, it says that we're 3 miles away again. We're all kinda what the fucking, because we all saw the same thing, but we brush it off and follow the new directions. The new directions take us down the same roads we'd already been on, but I swear to you, no lie at all here, the same directions brought us to a different place. Same thing happens. We reach the flag on the screen flashes black, comes back with new directions, saying we're a few miles away again. This happens 4 times total before we give up and go in the opposite direction of where the GPS says to go. This brings us to a shady-looking little convenience store. As my dad pulls into the parking lot to get gas, the headlights flash over the woods behind the store. Nothing there, just woods. My anxiety is growing to epic proportions, and I just want to get the fuck home at this point. We get gas, reroute the GPS to get us home, and turn around. The headlights fall over the exact same spot that they had only a few moments earlier, where all 4 of us saw full thick woods. The woods are gone, and there's a clearing now with a very old gated cemetery, and the gates have been broken and are open a couple of feet. This cemetery was not there a few minutes prior. All 4 of us have acknowledged that we have no fucking clue how it just appeared. Being as open to possibilities as I am, I've spoken to some experts who have agreed with me that they believe it was probably a portal of some kind, not necessarily to hell or anything over the top like that, just a portal in general that could appear and disappear. My mom, for whatever reason I don't know, drives up to the gates and puts the car in park. I'm panicking at this point and trying to get her to turn around and leave. I swear I could feel the energy radiating off this tiny cemetery, and it was making me physically ill. I'm seeing something just inside the gates, and I can't make out what it is at first, but when I make it out, I almost start crying. I'm used to my visions enough that I can tell what's in the physical realm and what isn't. This figure wasn't. Clear as day, there was a young girl, looking maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing just inside the gates. She was in a ratty, torn little great white nightgown and looked very tattered, like she'd been living in the woods or some shit. She had the sweetest face, albeit filthy and scratched up, and my maternal instincts were going into overdrive despite my fear. I was so conflicted. On one hand, half of me was screaming to get away. On the other, I felt like I was being compelled to get out of the car and go to her. All I can describe it as was a voice in my head telling me to go take her hand and lead her back to the car. Just go help her. You have to help her. You have to take her home with you. She needs you. I cannot even begin to describe how malicious the voice in my head sounded. I have chills upon chills just remembering it. Just as I was reaching for the door handle to go help her, I felt like I was in some hypnotic state, like I couldn't control myself. She did something that snapped me out of it. She raised one hand to me, palm up, and curled her fingers, like a "come here" motion. As she did it, I realized her eyes were jet black, no white, no iris, and she grinned at me with the most terrifying smile I have ever seen. My panic mode went into overdrive, and I literally started pleading with my mother to leave. I was fighting tears. I was so afraid of whatever this thing was. I just knew in my gut that it was not anything I wanted any part of. When she finally turned the car back on and put it in reverse, this look of absolute rage crossed the child's face before she disappeared. When my mom turned around and started driving away, we all noticed that when we looked behind us, the cemetery was gone again. The four of us barely ever speak of it because we're all so dumbfounded by whatever happened. It was a year and a half ago, and I only got the courage to tell my fiancé about my vision a few weeks ago. I've thought long and hard on it, and I don't know if it was a demon or just some malevolent entity, but what I do know, and I don't know how I know this, I just do, is that it was not a little girl, but something else, taking the form of something that the entity somehow knew would affect me, as I have a really big soft spot for children who need help. Anyways, moral of the story is, if you're trying to find something that's supposedly haunted, and it takes you 4 or 5 tries to even find the damn place, and the whole experience of looking for it is really fucked up and unexplainable, you should probably just go home. And don't go play with little dead girls or demon girls or whatever the fuck it was.
When I was a kid, my little brother and I visited my grandparents in Tulsa, Oklahoma every summer. It was pretty boring town, as the capital of Cherokee Nation. Most recreational activities were related to the culture and history of Cherokees. The last summer we spent it, I was 11, that age between wanting so badly to be seen as a teenager, but finding enjoyment in brat dolls. My brother was 8, and I wouldn't settle down unless he had a Nintendo DS. I didn't dread visiting my grandparents like many other children do, other than a cultural shock that came from leaving our home in LA to a relatively small Oklahoma town. I loved spending time with my grandparents, and so did my brother. They spoiled us with toys and ice cream. On a Thursday afternoon, my little brother and I were playing at the elementary school across the street from my grandparents' house. If you've ever been to Oklahoma, you probably know how quickly the weather changes. It's not uncommon for it to snow one day and be in the 90s the next day. This day went from sunny to cloudy extremely quick. It didn't begin raining or lightning, so my brother and I continued playing, but these were normal clouds. They looked heavier and thicker. They were almost black. I'm still not sure how, if the clouds were some sort of warning for about what will happen, or I'm just trying to connect things. A girl who was probably 9 or 10 showed up at some point. She didn't have her parents with her, but it was a fairly safe town and not uncommon for kids to walk around. She introduced herself as Ali. She was blonde and blue-eyed, and began enlightening us with some old Cherokee tales. With Topeka being a capital of the Cherokee Nation, many urban legends of the towns are actually quite true in Topeka. Most people's great-great-grandmas really were Cherokees, and the school playground were actually carrying playing on had really once been an Indian burial ground. She told us one grotesque story about the deer lady, who was heartbroken, now went insane and cut her legs off, and stitched deer legs on her torso in place. The final story inspired what we thought would be a fun adventure. She told us that Chief's 15-year-old daughter, who had been brutally murdered by her white husband on their anniversary for flirting with another man. They buried her out of respect, never removed her gravestone when the school was built. Ali told us there'd be a bit of maneuvering, but there's this panel that could be removed and we could crawl underneath the school and see the gravestone. We were all in shape, so we began our adventure. To our disappointment, the panel had been screwed shut and began to rain. My brother and I decided to go home. Ali, however, insisted there was another way in. I tried to tell her that our parents would be worried and it would probably be best for us to go home too, but she was determined to find another way in. My brother and I went to my grandparents' house and changed up dry clothes, drank Kool-Aid and watched TV. While my brother and grandparents were watching Valley of Parents, I noticed I could see still Ali, drenched in the rain, trying to find her way underneath the school from my living room window. Eventually she did. I watched her crawl in, but I never saw her crawl out. We sat through an entire episode of Valley of Parents, and then half an episode of Drake and Josh, so it had to be like 45 minutes. One night I had trouble sleeping. I told myself she'd come out a different way, or maybe she came out when I wasn't looking. The next morning I woke up refreshed. I was certain Ali had found a way out. My grandparents took her to a carnival and to the local ice cream shop. It was 6 o'clock in the evening when we got home and my grandma began cooking, while my grandpa took a nap. My brother and I were kids, so we still had lots of energy left. So when we went across the street to play some more, and our grandma told us she would call us when supper was ready. I told my little brother I saw Ali going underneath the school, and I must see if he was up for adventure. He agreed, and I went to a panel. I saw that Ali loosened. I loosened and crawled underneath the school, and my brother followed. The reaming daylight flooded into the basement along us, providing us with enough light to see the things directly in front of us. The ground was cold, wet, dirt, and there were so many pipes and old basketballs to crawl around. I immediately spotted 8 to 10 headstones though. The first one was directly to the right of my brother and I, but the name was too faded to read. I was feeling kinda creeped out that I had been right and we were crawling over a bunch of dead bodies. I probably would have left, but my brother didn't seem afraid at all. I wanted to seem braver than him, so I crawled to the next stone. This one read, Andrew Cummins, had a birthday of 1890 and death day of 1902. There's one to the left that also read Alison Cummins, and had a birthday of 1893 and death day of 1902. Also, this freaked me out even more, and made me think of Ali, who had the same name, looked about the same age. I was as a dead girl or several feet below me. Bro suddenly shouted, "Look, someone in the corner's moved." Before I could tell him that we should immediately leave, he shoved me out of the way and began crawling incredibly fast to the corner further from us. I could clearly see a couple of large figures moving, but I couldn't make out much else. "I'm probably just dogs. Let's go," I told him. But as he crawled, I crawled right behind him, getting closer and closer to the larger figures. They began to look more like silhouettes of people sitting against a wall, all with their knees to the chest. When they came into view, my brother turned around and crawled underneath me. I held him close to my chest. We were both terrified. The first girl was clearly Ali, except she didn't look as lively as she did yesterday. She wasn't smiling or her hair was stringy. Next to her was a boy, who looked closer in age to me and had no hair at all. He wasn't smiling either. Then there was another girl who looked like more normal, ran Ali over boy. His skin was dark and her hair was so long it bunched up to the ground. She looked about 16, but her face expressions were the scariest. It was one of her absolute despair. The scariest part was about her eyes. I could see my brother's eyes glowing, but none of her eyes glowed. It didn't even look like we really had eyes. Just pits of darkness. Ali smiled and said, "Thank God, you guys came." The other two laughed. "Yeah, well, we're going to be leaving now," I said, trying my hardest to sound casual and not scared. All three laughed and the other girl spoke up. "No, you're not." Her voice had confidence. I pushed my brother in the direction we came in and quickly began crawling. I heard my grandma calling out to us. I called out to her to help us. All of them just stopped laughing. I looked suddenly scared. She said, "Leave right now and never tell a soul. You saw us. You got lucky." We didn't have to be told twice and quick crawled out. At dinner that night, my brother and I talked about science. It had been a long day and been tired. We never played at that playground cross again and rarely talked about the incident. 5 months after we left, my grandparents were murdered in their own home. A neighbour had said they seen my grandma and their 3 children into her home the day of a murder. A bald boy, a blonde girl, and a dark-haired girl. Cops would never find any leads, and the case was eventually closed. Neither my brother nor I plan to visit Taliqua or even Oklahoma ever again, but I know it doesn't matter. I'm certain that one day they'll show up on my doorstep. I know I'll tell them to go away, and I can only hope that will be enough.
It's in the dustiest books that you may find the best stories.